I'm Elise Winters, and I'm a Suzuki violin teacher in Austin, Texas. And in this video, I want to share with you a fun way of setting up the bowhold for your young beginners. I've been teaching for about 20 years, and there's a million ways of setting up the bowhold. And I can say that this is the first one that I've found that actually seems to work really well for everyone, whether it's a very young beginner or their parent or a middle schooler who may need some remediation on their bowhold. One of the things that I think works about it is it really teaches the individual placement of each of the fingers, which isn't necessary to get into the bowhold, but I think really helps the students kind of manage their own bowholds and troubleshoot if they've gone astray after they've initially set it up. It helps them kind of understand in more detail where everything's supposed to go. So I'm going to teach my brand new beginner, Ilana, how to make a bowhold for the very first time. Ilana is going to take a walk in the forest. Here is her tree. It's going to be a very long walk, so we're going to make sure that we pack our water bottle. Middle finger and thumb make a tall circle, straight wrist. We walk and we walk and we walk and we walk, and finally we reach the middle of the forest where we find a beautiful stream. And Ilana says, "Oh, what a perfect place to sit down and pour myself a drink." At this point, elbow in the air, we're approximately at shoulder height. The arm is pronated. Of course, it's overly pronated. We'll fix that in a second. So we're pouring a drink. Oops, we don't want to spill it. Let's tip it back a little bit. Now we're at about a 45-degree angle. Ilana is drinking her water when she hears the sound of birds. And she looks up in the tree and she sees a bird sitting on a branch, looking for the circle, checking for straight wrist. While she's watching, 3 more birds come onto the branch. Then, to her great surprise, the 2 middle birds swoop past her face and dive into the water, and it turns out they're ducks. Meanwhile, as she's watching, up in the very top of the tree, a raccoon wraps its tail gently around the branch. So that's the story. A couple little pointers about what to check along the way. Oops, I forgot one thing. As we're leaving the clearing in the forest, we walk out and we see a cave where a bear is sleeping. Make sure that the ceiling of the cave is very tall so the bears have lots of room. Okay, that's the story. All right, so a couple pointers along the way. Straight wrist throughout is going to help the setup of the fingers. I'm not sure why that works, totally does. If they have a straight wrist, the fingers end up kind of squishy and wonky. When they're sitting with all the birds on the branch, it's really helpful to keep the helper hand on at this point. It really stabilizes the bow. They can take it off, but that's not so great for the next step where the ducks fly in. So really we want to keep that helper hand going, at least until we get the ducks into the water. Now, when the ducks go in the water, that's the first opportunity that they tend to sometimes straighten everything out. Up until this point, you'll tend to have really, really nice circles because we've set that circle shape from the beginning. Then all we need to really do is make sure that we maintain that circle when the ducks go in. The first finger and the pinky are still sitting on top of the bow, so they're really limiting how far the ducks are going to get into the water, and that's going to give you the exact right balance. And that's, I think, one of the things that's helped my more advanced students who had some tweaking to do with their bowhold, is it's helping them find that really perfect seat for their middle 2 fingers so that everything's kind of on the fold of the fingers and it feels really secure and balanced. So I've been using this bowhold for quite a while now. I've had really, really good success with it, and I haven't actually had to go to any other method of setting up the bowhold since I've been using this one, because it really customizes the bowhold to each individual student's hand, and it really aligns everything. So it's just, I think, besides being a really cute story that the kids connect to and they love the characterizations of the fingers, it really just makes sure that everyone is very, very comfortable in their own body, in their own bowhold. So now let's talk about how to keep the bowhold. So you may have noticed that inherent in the bowhold setup that we just did is that this is an adult bowhold. And really where that came from for me is I felt the beginner bowhold, like I tried playing with it one time, and it felt so blocky and inflexible and kind of clunky and gross that I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't give my beginners that bow hold. So I made a commitment that I was going to find a way to give my young beginners an adult bow hold and have them come out with flying colors. So here's what I've discovered in that process. The thing that is hard about playing with an advanced bow hold isn't actually making the initial bow hold itself. It's keeping it once you get on the violin. Because when you play and you stay in the middle, no problem, you can keep your bow hold. When you go to the tip is when the damage really happens, because everything extends as you go to the tip. Your pinky extends, your thumb extends, and then you come back, and if that pinky and thumb don't recover, then you're stuck. So the real question is, how can we teach a beginner's hand to extend and recover the pinky and thumb successfully so that they can manipulate an adult bow hold with finesse and it stays flexible and they have a sense of how that works in their hand? So here's how we're going to do that. As you may recall, when we last left our bowhold story, the raccoon was wrapped around the branch, our ducks were in the water, and the only bird still left on the branch is the little pinky here. So our little pinky is going to flap its wings, and the thumb and the third finger are going to go along with it. Raccoon is going to stay nice and snugly around the front, so he is staying curvy while the other fingers straighten. It's a little bit of multitasking in the hand, takes a little bit of concentration to get the fingers doing different things. So I call this exercise flapping the wings. Now, what's funny and surprising and great is that my young beginners love doing this. I'm not sure what the magic is. They love it. It takes them a minute to get it to work. Of course, you know, the pencil rolls out of their finger initially. Sometimes the pencil rolls onto the squishy part of the thumb, so they have to work on keeping it on the skinny ledge of the thumb. But once they actually get this figured out, they do it over and over and over again. They will come back to your lessons with the most amazing wing flapping you have ever seen. They are ready to be on the bow. Now, I'm not going to put them on the bow. I'm not going to live that dangerously, but they're ready to do a little bit of practice with the dowel rod, and my main goal for using the dowel rod is really just to give them an experience of straight bowing. I'm going to approximate as closely as possible the actual position of the bow, which means I'm going to have them hold their arm about shoulder height, fairly close to their body. I'm not going to put it on their shoulder because the bow wouldn't actually go that close to them. And I'm not going to have them bow perpendicularly to their body. It should be at about a 45, maybe not quite a 45-degree angle to the body. Now, one difference between flapping the wings and the dowel rod is that when they were flapping the wings, the extend motion is an active motion, and the recurve motion is also an active motion. So actively extend, actively recurve. Instead, on the dowel rod or the bow, the act of pulling the bow to the tip will simply cause their fingers to straighten. So they're going to passively allow their fingers to straighten. Now they'll need to actively concentrate on recurving them when they come back here. That's not going to happen automatically. So I'm going to help them figure out how to kind of put their fingers to sleep a little bit as they pull to the tip. They're going to allow their fingers to be passive and then actively manage the recurving when they come back. And it's really beautiful watching a very young child pay such detailed attention to the extending and the recurving. They don't have a lot going on to notice at this point because there's no violin, there's no sound. Really the only thing they have to manage is that extend and recurve, and they can get a really, really good result at this stage and have some pretty amazing bow technique in their hand. The other thing that I want them to get at this stage is matching the speed of their bow movements to the notes of the song. I do my songs in movable do solfege, so we're going to be singing the song in solfege and making sure that that bow is matching the words that they're singing. So Twinkle Twinkle is pretty easy because all of the notes are pretty moderate speed, so we might do that once and maybe practice some slow bows on the long notes. But the harder songs are the ones that have some real variety in the rhythm. So Frere Jacques is perfect for that. Do, re, mi, do, do, re, mi, do, mi, fa, sol, la, so, fa, mi, do, sol, la, so, fa, mi, do, so, do. And the dowel is pretty great because it's long enough. I don't cut it very much. I keep it pretty long. I can actually reach down here and grab the other end of the dowel and guide their correct bowing, and they'll feel me matching the rhythm, and they'll start to match the rhythm. And I can also tell by feeling the response on the stick, I can tell when they're kind of ready for me to let go and take it over for themselves and do it correctly. There's two other things that I'm looking for as they're working with the dowel. So thing number one, when they go out to the tip, of course their wrist is going to drop down. When they come up, we're looking for that wrist to regain a little bit of flatness. Nice little soft, gentle curve here. It may very easily come up like this, and the parent is just going to help support that wrist from underneath and make sure that it's reshaping itself in a nice way. The other thing is there's definitely a strength building aspect to working with the dowel. Never in their life has their arm needed to be this high for so long. So of course it's going to drop down to here. It's a more natural position. Even if they're not getting tired, it's a more natural position. So we're going to support them a little bit here, remind their arm to get a little bit higher. The parent is going to help them to do that. Once they've mastered extending and recurving the fingers, allowing the wrist to curve and then straighten, and keeping the arm at a nice height, I know that they're ready to handle the bow on the violin. Two other activities that you can use that extend the dowel practice, especially if they need a little bit more practice, but are starting to really build toward the violin so they can see where this is going and they start to get excited and more motivated. So this really kind of keeps their attention going. You can use a very simple egg crate. The cardboard kind is best because the styrofoam kind squeaks really badly. And this makes a beautiful violin, and their dowel rod slides neatly in the grooves and keeps their bow straight. Rest position, playing position. You can do a similar thing with the box violin. I've put a little cylinder on the top of it. I made sure to match the exact location that it would be on the equivalent size violin so that it's the perfect placement for them, although not for me. And that does the same thing. It's really guiding them in that straight bow path so they can give a little performance of one of their songs, pull the bow out, rest position, and take a bow. They're getting very excited at this point because they know that the next thing that's going to happen is they're going to finally get to play. Just as the movement building blocks in the first video are what my students have to master in order to earn their violin, the Bowhold activities in this video are what they have to master in order to earn their bow. Below this video is a handout of the Bowhold story with photos of one of my students doing each of the steps. So feel free to download that and print it out and use it with your parents. I hope you've really enjoyed these activities and get tons of mileage out of them with your students.